Why is Gestalt theory important, you ask? Well, if you know Gestalt theory, you'll be able to suggest ideas without drawing them. Yes, my friends, this is the secret sauce to artistic mastery. And there are 9 of them. First of all, though, let's talk about the elements and principles, because I want to go over those just in case. So the elements of art, there is 7 of them. Line, space, color, shape is 1, form, texture, value, that's 7. Those are the elements of art. The principles of design, there's 8. Technically, there's 10, but we combined 4 of them. Balance, contrast, movement, rhythm and repetition, emphasis, unity, variety. Unity we have grouped with harmony. Proportions. If you don't remember your elements of art or principles of design, we have an entire playlist where I explain them in detail and try to be funny, so I'll link them in the description for you to watch next. So these are your principles of design. Your principles of design are the stuff that make your artwork feel better. So think of your elements as like your nouns. They're the nouns of your artwork, right? It's the what is in there. What are the objects? What are the things? Think of your principles as your adjectives. Your adjectives, your verbs, right? It's the things that make those nouns move, makes them work, makes them interesting. So we know the elements of art, we know the principles of design. Did you know there's a third one? Gestalt theory. This is the weird one. If our elements of art are our nouns, our principles of design are adjectives and verbs, Gestalt theory is our context. When we have a sentence, you can say a sentence whenever the heck you want. You can have as many nouns and verbs and adjectives in there as you want. However, if you have all those nouns and adjectives and you don't have any context behind it, that sentence still feels meaningless. So, Gestalt theory is that context behind what we do. So, Gestalt theory is how we utilize our elements and principles of art to make sense within human perception. It's how we perceive things and how to make art make sense. The funny thing about Gestalt theory is that you absolutely know almost every single bit of Gestalt theory. It's just now we're putting definitions to it. When I learned Gestalt theory for the first time, I was like, I've never heard of Gestalt theory in my life. And every single piece of Gestalt theory, I was like, oh, yeah, I figured, but I didn't know it had a name. Right? That's kind of how Gestalt theory feels when you learn it for the first time. So let's talk about Gestalt theory. There's a bunch of them. I'm only going to go over the ones that I think are the most relevant. So the first one is proximity. So things that are closer together are seen as a group. If we've got one little huddling together of a bunch of beans on one side, and then we've got another little huddling together of another group of beans on another side, this bean group feels like one group, this bean group feels like another group. Even if we draw them as a bunch of different shapes. Say if I threw some squares in there, right? We got a bunch of squares, maybe some other stars, you know, whatever. Same deal over here, maybe there's some spirals, triangle or two. They're all different elements, but because of their proximity, we see this one as one group, we see this one as another group. That's kind of how we think of proximity. Second thingy, similarity. Things that are similar are grouped, regardless of proximity. So if we've got a whole sea of like blue dots, and let's say if we got a bunch of these little blue dots, but then we have 2 red dots. This one's red, this one's red. They're not close to each other, but automatically our brain's like, oh yeah, those 2 red dots, those are grouped together. They're similar, therefore they are within the same group. If I kind of toss some other colors in there, if I tossed a couple of green dots, got one up here, one down here, and now we see those green dots as another group, regardless of how close they are together. If I kind of toss another one over here, now this feels unbalanced because the group is off to the side, so I've got to put another one over here. Regardless, things that are similar to one another are grouped regardless of proximity. Even if they're far away, if we've got a sea of stuff that's really similar, and then we've got like 2 little dots on the sides that feel a bit strange, or that's our similarity. Next is symmetry and order. So this one requires a bit more explanation. So symmetry and order creates consistency, stability, and structure. Even numbers equal symmetry, odd numbers equal asymmetry. So use this at your own discretion. Think of a composition, the amount of objects that you see within a composition. Let's think of the numbers 4 and the numbers 5 for a sec. If we have 4 dots, kind of like this. This is perfectly symmetrical in a way where we think like, oh yeah, this 4 equals symmetry because you can say that half the composition has 2 of the dots, the other half has the other 2 dots, right? So it creates a sense of symmetry. If we have odd numbers, so say if you have number 5, this creates a bit more asymmetry. Now we have more of a focal point because it's not like we can split this in perfect halves without cutting one of the elements in half. But then that, if we cut it in half, creates the number 6. So if we want something with a stronger focal point, it's better to use asymmetry because using even numbers tends to create too much symmetry, which can create monotony. So it's usually better to have asymmetry within our works, especially when it comes to composition. Next thing that we're doing is continuation. This is elements that move eyes across a comp. I'm just gonna say comp, it's short for composition. So this deals with leading lines and movement. And this is how to add focal points. Envision forming a spiral. If we start at one end of the spiral, we slowly spiral towards the center. That's continuation. Our eyes will continue that spiral until we get to the center for whatever our little focal point is. Another easy way for continuation, we have our little focal point. We got a bunch of arrows. These arrows, our brain automatically continues the arrows to go towards wherever they're pointing. Right, the spiral one is a bit more fun though. But yeah, continuation is how the elements move our eyes across a composition. This will allow you to create movement. Continuation is the context for movement. So a lot of the times we need continuation in order for movement to work. Leading lines and that kind of deal. Closure, this one's my favorite one. So closure is the idea that our brains will finish an incomplete shape using context clues, right? So our brain will automatically complete shapes if given enough context, right? So let me draw you a little picture. Let's draw something fun for a sec.
If you'd like to support the channel and the creation of free arts education, become a member on Patreon.
Cool. Okay. I did not draw in the suit, but you still kind of know what he's doing. You can tell me the action. If I asked you, what action is he doing right now? You would tell me, he's saying hello. He is waving. He's waving, right? So his arm is bent right over here. The other one's probably just straight down. But we can kind of envision that, right? I haven't completed it. I haven't completed the illustration, but you kind of know. And that's what closure is the idea that you can finish stuff even without given the full context. This next one's also kind of fun. This next one's called Common Fate. It sounds like a final move in an RPG. All right, so things that are moving in the same direction, they automatically feel grouped together. So this one overrides proximity. Right, the best way to describe this is if we think of birds, right? I'm not gonna actually draw birds. I'm gonna draw some like less than, more than say signs. If we think of birds, you know how they all kind of go in one direction. So all the birds will kind of make this V formation and they automatically feel grouped together. If there are somehow a bunch of other birds around going in the opposite direction, these birds that are going in the opposite direction, despite them not being in a group, feel grouped together because they're going in the same direction. These guys are close together, but are also all going in the same direction. Regardless though, the birds that are going, quote unquote, that are going in the opposite direction also feel grouped because they are going all in the same way. So this kind of helps, like if you've seen any like really traditional paintings of like Noah's Ark, right, where all the animals kind of go onto the ark or whatever. Everything that goes along the same path, despite them all being different, they all feel grouped together because of their common fate. Past experience. Based on previous knowledge, the brain will complete images. Can you read this? You can read this. The U is before the can. But yes, hello, you can read this. You can read that because you're given the first and last letter of every single word. Not all the letters are on the inside, but you know enough about it where you can still read the sentence. So that sentence is you filling in the blanks based on what you know. Very similar to closure, but this one's a bit just slightly different. It's what you already understand and what you have known based on experience. Common region. Elements that are grouped together if they are within a confined area. All right, so this one overrides every single other grouping strategy. Every single one has nothing on common region. If I take a bunch of little dots, let's draw a bunch of dots first. And then if I took some squares, kind of sprinkled them in there, let's pretend that these squares are perfectly fine, not terrible looking. And then if I got some triangles, filling in the rest of the space. As random as my human brain can go, right? Just placing a bunch of random shapes around. But if I just went like that, now that section of shapes feels grouped compared to everything else. It feels isolated from the rest of the shapes that I have drawn. And this is because it is common region. They're using common region. And now they're all within a singular point. So this is a strategy that you use a lot compositionally. And common region is the strongest grouping one. All right, last one. This is the last one. Element connectedness. So items connected by line or other elements will be grouped. Right, so things that are connected by line will be grouped. Here's an example that's less like shapy and abstract. Say if I were to like draw a house. Let's draw a house. This is a beautiful house. Wow. And then I've got like, if I got like a big dinosaur, it's like a big friend shaped. Yeah, I've got a dinosaur. And then maybe there's a tree. And there's somebody flipping out. There's a dinosaur in their front yard, you know. And then there's a car somewhere. My weakness of vehicles shows. Anyway, we got all these objects. They don't really make a lot of sense, right? Not 100% connected in any real way. But let me throw a horizon line in there. Now it all feels like they're within the same space. This line creates element connectedness because now it feels as though they're all within the same confined space. Right, so element connectedness, maybe we'll have some bushes back here too. And this also helps the elements feel connected. So this helps create a scene. Element connectedness is how we create scenes in a way. Items that are connected by line or other elements will be grouped.
Join a virtual class to learn live from our professional artists. Get creative assignments, individual guidance, and real-time feedback on your artwork. Start today and level up your practice.
If you made it this far into the theory without getting bored, congratulations. You're an official art nerd like me and our students here at Wing Canvas. Now go watch the Elements and Principles videos linked here.
If you learned something new, like and share this with a fellow art nerd. If you love receiving quality and free arts education, subscribe.